back at it again. I need the dollar, that's what I need. What I need, the dollar, that's what I need. Said I need the dollar, that's what I need. I gotta get it. If I share with you my story, would you share your dollar with me? Look, tell me.
All right, joining me today is XFL Jim. He's obviously a huge fan of the XFL. If you've been following it since 2020, you probably know his name. He's covered it quite well over the years.
I am very passionate, and I will continue to use this logo as long as possible.
I don't blame you. That logo is so much better than the one that they redesigned.
And I don't dislike the redesign. I think it looks kind of cool. I think it looks like a nice sports brand. But man, this is just something screams. It tickles me in my soul.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. That is like exactly like you said. It's a great rebrand. It would be great for a standalone league that did not have the history of the XFL already.
Exactly.
But the topic at hand today is a USFL Week 1 review. Obviously, you're also a big USFL fan. From what I can tell, you basically follow every spring league there is.
I do. And yeah, the USFL is the main game in town right now. I've been on board for a minute, and Week 1's in the books. I liked how it went. I'm on the more optimistic side. I'm on the glass half full kind of side because there was a lot of good. There was some really big standout bad. But I think overall I'm coming away optimistic.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's start with the first game, Birmingham versus New Jersey. What did you think about the quarterback situation with Luis Perez and I believe it's Johnson?
Yeah, DeAndre Johnson. I expected this coming in, that they were going to be playing both significant amount of time. I mean, I was fine with it for the most part until the end of the game, and that's more to do with Mike Riley's play calling than anything else. But I thought Luis Perez, he looked great starting out. He had a couple issues mid-first half, but he looked great throughout, passing the ball, obviously. And then DeAndre Johnson, in my opinion, best runner of the entire, of like running backs, quarterbacks, any position, best runner of the entire weekend. Dude was electric. Maybe needs, I think, just go with one of them next time. And if you're going to put DeAndre in there, I think you got to give him some intermediate passes, some short passes to get his legs underneath him. Because like Mike Riley was just run, and then try and bomb it downfield when running stopped working with DeAndre. And he's not that kind of guy.
Yeah, agreed. He's definitely more of a rhythm passer, mid to intermediate routes for sure. So I kind of thought it was actually kind of surprising to see Luis Perez do so well, considering he started and he's been in camp, 2 weeks or something?
Yeah, he's been in a short notice, but I wasn't super surprised because anyone who follows these spring leagues for a while, Luis Perez has been in like every single one. He's been in the spring league. He's dabbled in the CFL a little bit. He was a big name in the XFL in 2020. He was leading New York on a great comeback. I was calling him the Rat King of New York the entire time. I love that guy. And then he was good in the AAF too.
Absolutely. I'm kind of partial to him. A long time ago. It's been a while now, but he was on the Eagles roster at one point way back in the day. So yeah, he's kind of a guy I've always followed in spring leagues and whatnot. I did not know he was in the CFL at any point.
I think he's dabbled. He usually tries to stay within the States. I also, like, that could be just speaking out of my ass. I at any point in time, I have like 3 players in my head that I'm thinking of, so they get mixed up a lot.
Oh, I completely understand. There's so many players to keep track of with all these different leagues. How can you possibly remember every little fact about all of them?
Exactly. Not to mention, like, USFL, CFL are the two big ones right now. We got XFL coming up. I still try and keep track of everyone. My other favorite league to watch, besides the newly discovered American Sevens, non-padded, non-helmet, full contact football, which I love dearly. I'm a big follower of the X League over in Japan.
Really?
And it's a lot of players to keep track of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have not gotten into the X League a whole lot. I have recently started getting into the Elf a little bit more. We actually had Kyle Kitchens, the 2021 Defensive Player of the Year, on a couple weeks ago with my co-host. So it was kind of cool to have him on. And I'll have a general manager, Deanna Hodge, I believe. on here shortly. So that'd be
Nice.
kind of cool as well. One of the big things I've always wanted to do is highlight the women that are in the game. And she is one of the ones that's very prominent. Obviously, she's a general manager, so it's kind of cool. But I'm getting a little off topic there. Sorry about that. Anyway, what did you think about the run game outside of Johnson?
For the Generals, it was pretty decent. I thought they had a nice I come away thinking that with DeAndre Johnson in and the backs they kind of have like a 2-3 headed monster back there for the Generals. They have a really good rotation. I think the Generals could sneakily have the strongest run game in the entire league.
I could definitely see that, especially if you consider that they're going to throw in Johnson from time to time. Um, on the other side of the ball, what did you think about Birmingham on both the quarterback and the running back situation?
So when we're talking about Birmingham quarterbacks, I got to shout out Alex Magoo. Looked good that opening drive. I think we saw that with most quarterbacks. Most people looked really good, at least on that opening drive. They had their game script down pat.
Yep.
He was struggling bad there. I think Birmingham has their guy in Jamar Smith. I think Smith is the guy going forward because he put the team on his back. He was looking good. This Stallions team, I think, is kind of surprising everybody. Surprising me, especially because I've talked about it a little bit. I wasn't huge on Skip Holtz as a coach. Maybe I'm still not. I'm still on the fence about that. But this team they have is actually a well put together team, at least roster wise, and I can get behind it. After Saturday night, I'm a big Jamar Smith guy.
I could definitely see that. He was pretty exciting to watch towards the end of the game there. I actually thought Birmingham had one of the more well-rounded rosters prior to the game, but I did like a kind of shot in the dark power rankings for the preseason, and I put them, I think, at 6th because I was just not sold on the quarterback position. But I think Smith actually kind of proved me wrong in that game.
After week 1, it's hard for me not to rank them still. Out of all the winners, I still think I rank them 3rd. I think I rank them. Yeah, I think I rank them 3rd. I would still probably rate them over the Gamblers.
Okay, I could see that. I actually
just
have
like what you were saying,
flip-flop.
they are like I would say the most well-rounded team, potentially.
Absolutely. So, what did you think about the defensive performance in the game? It was kind of awesome to watch. They're hitting for sure.
They're every game, but especially Saturday, they were letting them boys just hit. Love seeing that. I found an assumption that I'm going to kind of just roll with for these first couple weeks. You're seeing a big scoring surge in most second halves in these games, and I think that's because with these small rosters, these defenses are going to get friggin' tired. These boys are going to get super tired out there, and like a lot of them are also playing special teams. So if you take that into account too, I love that they're letting these like you see all these passes that in college or the NFL, these are getting called for pass interference every time.
Yep.
They don't even call it. It's beautiful.
Yep, exactly. It is nice to see that they are letting them play. That is one of my big complaints about the NFL at this point, and it's nice to see that the USFL is kind of going back to that old school style of football.
It's very nice to see. I love big, nice, aggressive football. It's what the game's about.
Absolutely. So obviously, then you probably liked the rest of the games that focused on defense. It seemed like every game we watched, there was big defensive plays, whether it was sack fumbles, pick sixes, or whatever it may be. It was awesome. What did you think about that?
Super stoked. I liked, for the most part, I'd say Sans kickoffs. Like most of the kickoffs were good. Sometimes like something's up with that ball. We could talk about that in a bit, but something's up with that ball. The kicking was atrocious. The defense was really good throughout, and I think a lot of teams we expected to be offensive powerhouses really showed up defensively, which is a very good sign. And the fact that these defensive linemen are getting major credit in these first games is a good sign for the league.
Absolutely. I actually think you put that perfectly. One of the teams that I thought showed up big time defensively that I was not necessarily projecting to be a great defense was New Orleans. They dominated Philadelphia. I was shocked. I mean, I thought Philadelphia was going to come into this season and just tear teams up the first couple weeks of the season because of so many players having prior familiarity with Andrews and his system. And then here we saw that the New Orleans had another thing coming for us.
I think that's another issue of like the small training camp that they had. These defenses are going to look really good to start out with. New Orleans looked way better than I think almost anybody anticipated. They looked off. They looked crazy. But you saw kind of in the first half glimpses, Philly was able to get downfield. They just couldn't, like, they would have kicking issues or they would go for it and fail to convert. There was just small things like that. But the box score wise, at least in that first half, Philadelphia was dominating.
True.
And then all of a sudden, New Orleans decides to turn on the offense and they change something up, go up tempo a little bit, get Kyle Slaughter in a rhythm, and then the kid's just looking electric.
Yeah, that was actually one guy that I was looking forward to seeing in this league. I'm born and raised in Denver, so I watched him with the Broncos for many preseasons, and I always thought that he should have been on the roster as the number 3, but they never quite kept him. He was always on the practice squad or ended up cut and somewhere else. But he's definitely, I think, one of the better quarterbacks in the league right now.
I would probably put him at least top. I'd put him in top 3 pretty confidently.
Agreed. Probably what, Jordan Ta'amu and Shea Patterson?
I put Jordan Ta'amu up there. I'm not going to put Shea Patterson up there yet. He showed promise at the end of that Michigan Panthers game, kind of trying to lead them back. That offensive line for the Panthers is really, it's the worst offensive line in my opinion. But I'd probably say he might be number 2. And then I'd still put Brian Scott as like 2 or 3 in there.
Oh my Lord. How did I forget Scott? That's terrible. Okay. I'll just edit that out. Pretend that never happened. Yeah. Forget the fact that I put Patterson as a top 3 and forgot Scott. It's just.
It never happened. It never happened. You're good.
So moving on to the Houston versus Michigan game. Who do you think starts at quarterback for both of these teams going forward, since we saw some question about that?
I mean, Michigan, it's got to be Shea Patterson. Paxton Lynch is terrible. He's terrible. And I don't want to be mean to the guy, but he's not good. Like, maybe he's a nice guy, but don't play quarterback anymore. Shea Patterson, as many mistakes as he made, he showed promise. And, like, I feel like with a full game under his belt, he could be good. And the thing we got to think about, Shea Patterson compared to most of these guys, he hasn't been, like, actively in a lot of these leagues like these other guys have. So maybe he takes a little bit more time to get the rust knocked off. I still believe in him. I still believe in this Panthers team. I would say Shea Patterson for the Panthers. I'm going to lean towards Clayton Thorson. I still think he has really good potential. I was a big fan of his at Northwestern, so maybe that's still that hype kind of like rubbing off on me. I think you give him another week.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. I mean, I'm a little partial to the guy myself, being an Eagles fan, and I think he has the intangibles to be a decent quarterback. He did not look good in week 1, that's for sure, despite the fact that they got the win.
To be fair, nobody offensively looked good in that game.
That's true. That was a pretty bad game. Wasn't there like 9 fumbles on Michigan's side?
Bad. It was real bad.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I would have called that the worst game of the week, but there's another one that I would put up there.
Really? So, without jumping ahead, which was the other worst game that you thought?
It's jumping ahead, so you could guess which one it is.
Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that was
at least the Panthers and Gamblers were like competitive throughout. Like they both like that last drive, the Panthers had a chance to come back and win it. At no point did I feel like the Maulers had any chance.
That's true. And the sad part is, it seemed to me, and you can definitely correct me if you think I'm wrong, it seemed to me like one of the issues that Pittsburgh had was they didn't vary their play calling enough. Like it was like run, and then they went to pass, and it was like pass, and then right back to run.
Not only was it that, but it was run, and then the only passing you do is play action pass when the run isn't working.
Yeah, exactly.
That's never the time you want to do play action, is when you're not establishing the run.
Exactly.
Either sprinkle play action in throughout, or get some drop back passes for your boys. Like, yeah, the quarterbacks didn't look great, but like, do something. And if you're gonna run that much, if you're planning on running that much, maybe don't cut what a lot of people, me included, thought was the best running back in the league.
Exactly. Yeah, speaking of which, I mean, Devion Smith cut over what seems to be a very odd situation. I'm sure everybody's heard about it by now, but ultimately, apparently, he does not eat salad or chicken salad
He is
anyway.
not, Davion Smith confirmed, not a fan of chicken salad.
Yeah, absolutely. So much so that he actually got cut. So, I mean, that's a pretty big non fan of chicken salad. So, apparently, the whole situation seemed very crass, from my opinion.
From an outside point of view, Davion Smith, I'm a big fan, huge fan of him, his time at Tampa. I love the guy. But if I'm looking at this from like a purely outside, it is objectively funny. Like I was laughing when they showed it on United by Football. I'm like, this can't be real. Kirby Wilson is not a real human being.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just did it like the way you said that. He did it so robotic. He was just like, "Yeah, it's done. Thanks for telling me that." And then just gets up and walks out and I'm like, "Dude, you didn't even shake his hand? You didn't even like say, thanks for your time here or anything? You just walk out? Like, oh my god."
It was
It
pretty
was
wild.
yeah, the whole situation, like I get that Kirby Wilson's an old school coach. I mean, he's been coaching for what, like 30 years or something
True,
like
but
that.
this is also, I feel like there's some aspect that this being his first head coaching gig, he's got to really, maybe he feels like he really has to assert himself. This is some like high school coach level shit, though.
Agreed.
Excuse me if I'm not allowed to curse.
No, feel free, man.
Cool.
I not even close to being monetized, so we don't have to worry about that here.
It blew my mind when they showed. Not only did it blow my mind when they showed it and like how it went down, it blows my mind to this day that they decided to show it.
Absolutely.
Like week one, that's all anybody's gonna talk about. Like Pat McAfee was talking about. They were talking about it on like ESPN and like major stuff. You want the story to be about your Saturday night crowd attendance and how close all the games were. You don't want the story of the USFL week one to be potentially the best running back gets cut because of pizza.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you saw the team statement. The team
I did.
statement. Okay.
Just don't release that. Just don't.
Yeah, exactly. They could have avoided this entire situation. It was just a snafu on every angle. I mean, like, I don't know who was editing the video for him, but they looked at that and they're like, "Oh yeah, we should go ahead and let that through."
It's good drama, like for the show standpoint. Like if this was Hard Knocks and it was an independent company, yeah, I would show that. It's good. It's like everyone's going to talk about the show. And like aside from that, I thought the show, like even including that, I thought the show was great. I thought United by Football was a really cool thing. I like seeing all these players. That was just the only part anyone's going to talk about, and it's hilarious and it's sad for Davion Smith, but he's good enough. If I'm another USFL team, I'm grabbing him if I can.
True. Even if it's on the practice squad. As far as I know, there's no rule in the USFL to where you can sign practice roster guys with another team. So why not?
Exactly. Like what team needs a good running back?
I don't think there's a team that could hurt to take another.
Honestly, yeah. If I'm any of these teams, I'm grabbing Davion Smith.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way the depth is built, the way that all these rosters are built, a lot of them only have two running backs, and some of them might have a third if they have a fullback. So yeah, why not pick up a guy like that?
It's not like you're paying out the butt for him because like it's negotiated contract with the league. He's getting paid like a set amount.
True, exactly. It's
If I'm him, I don't know if I want to I don't know. Is it a Pittsburgh Maulers issue or is it like a USFL issue? I feel like it's a Maulers and Kirby issue more than like the league as a whole. But
yeah, I agree.
If I'm him, I'd come back. Screw it.
I agree wholeheartedly. Actually, I mean, I like what you said about it, that Kirby Wilson is a new first-time head coach. He may not have the respect that some of these other guys have due to their, experience with other leagues. So maybe he needed to assert himself a little, or so felt he needed to assert himself.
Laying out the fact that this was like line 46 on a handbook that he handed out day one is very funny to me.
That was, it's like, wow, man, you're taking it to the next level here for sure, but more power to you. You got to take it seriously, I guess, if you want to succeed, but that's a whole nother level of seriousness for sure.
It is.
What did you think about Houston's defensive performance? I think it was Reggie Northrup that returned the fumble for a touchdown.
They looked good. They looked real good. They were just dominating. Michigan up front, causing like forced fumbles left and right. The Gamblers' defense was a big surprise for me as well. I expected the offense was very disappointing, but that defense looked real good.
Absolutely. Actually, I was kind of surprised. The Gamblers' defense didn't have a whole lot of guys on it that I really recognized the names of, and then all of a sudden they're here just like shutting people down, which I kind of expected the game to be a little bit more even, and it got that way toward the fourth quarter, but it was a little bit of a surprise to me.
I think maybe throughout the season, as we get quarterbacks and kickers more comfortable with these microchip balls, you might be seeing more offensive games. I think maybe like week 5. Give it week 5. I'm going to say you'll see more higher scoring points. But
I agree.
Defenses are going to dominate early on. It's a fact of these leagues.
True. I mean, you got to have timing and gel on the offense. I mean, it's chemistry. We all know the old adages here. Defense is a different animal. I mean, as long as you know what you're supposed to be doing, your job on a given play, you're probably going to be okay.
And the fact that they're letting them be more physical, and they have like certain penalties that are, I wouldn't say advantageous to the defense, but they're not as detrimental. That pass interference is a real big one.
True. That is a very big one. On top of the fact that I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but it's only a 15-yard foul, correct? It's not a spot foul.
It is a spot foul if the replay booth in LA deems it a spot foul. Like if it's if a cornerback tackles a receiver, if it's like really blatant and egregious, it's a spot foul. Otherwise, it's a 15-yard penalty, unless it's within 15 yards. If it's an under 15 yard, if the penalty occurs under 15 yards, then it's a spot foul.
That's right. I forgot about the caveat that the hub can kind of change that for them. So that's definitely interesting to see. We spoke about it a little bit on that interception, or it was a fumble return, I think, Reggie Northrup had. He actually had the helmet cam. What did you think about that specific situation there?
I was a fan of the helmet cam. They did the drone cams, the helmet cams, the whole sorts of new stuff. I like the helmet cams. It gives you a nice. I like it on the players. Other leagues have tried it with the refs. Not a huge fan of that because you're still trying to follow all the action. If I'm watching a player's helmet cam, you're kind of trying to just see things from their point of view, and True. I like it. It's very fun. Sometimes it gave me a little motion sickness, but I had a good time with it.
I like how you said that. That actually was kind of interesting. It was almost like kind of a motion sickness feeling watching it from the player's eyes, and like getting tackled and stuff like that was interesting. You just mentioned it, the drones. What did you think about how loud they were? Do you think that's going to be an issue when there's crowds?
I want to hear. So I was talking with my buddy Justin, who was at the game, and he said they weren't an issue at the game, but he was there Saturday, so there was like 18,000 people. On the broadcast, they are very loud.
No doubt.
Maybe that's kind of a boost because it's kind of like covering up the lack of crowd noise. It's a little bit of a replacement for that in some respects, but they are very loud, and maybe I'll get used to them. But right now, like for some games, they were a little bit of a distraction.
Absolutely. It was kind of interesting to see, especially on the last 3 games when there was not much of a crowd. So I'm happy to hear that it was not a problem for the crowd themselves on Saturday night. I had not actually heard that from anybody. I hadn't really asked anybody yet.
I like the views at least. Like it gives pretty cool angles. I like them following kicks and punts and all that sort of stuff. That's really fun. Good on drone operators getting some work out there. But yeah, it's like when it's just watching a normal camera, it's a little distracting. Also, I watched like fan controlled football a little bit this weekend too. Yeah, they're going heavy on drones too. So like drones are just the in thing.
It makes sense. I mean, like you said, when they followed it on that kick. Oh, man, that was such a good shot. I can't remember which game that was. I watched all 4 of them in little bits and pieces here and there. So, shoot. It was on a kickoff at one point, and they just followed. They kind of looped around the kicker as he kicked it. And it was like such a good shot that it was like that was the whole reason they wanted the drones in the first place. Yep. And it was awesome to see.
Visually, they were pretty cool. Audibly, a little distracting sometimes.
Absolutely. I would agree 100%. And I hope that the crowd situation changes that, even on the broadcast situation. But I guess that remains to be seen over the next couple weeks. So we already kind of touched on it a little bit. Obviously, they had some attendance issues in night 2 and 3. Do you think this is going to be an issue going forward?
I think it'll be somewhat of an issue. I mean, obviously, I don't think the attendance will be as bad as it was Sunday and Monday. A, weather was an issue. B, it was Easter. I still think you're going to see major drops from Stallions games to every other game, not including the Stallions. Because what is anybody's real incentive to do? Like, it's a fun thing to do on the weekend, but if your team isn't playing, you're not super incentivized to go. I expected this for the season, though. Like, people should have expected this, in my opinion, because you saw it with what the Spring League was doing. This is basically the people who are running the Spring League. You saw it, what they did. When you do a hub city like this, you're going to get crowd issues. Like, you're going to have issues with that. It's just something that comes with the territory of doing a hub. Like, I don't assume there's a ton of Tampa Bay Bandits fans just living in Birmingham. I don't assume there's like a bunch of Michigan Panthers fans just living in Birmingham. And some of those guys will travel for some of the games, but you're not going to get major crowds to travel for Birmingham to see their team play. Not in year one and not in Birmingham. I'm sorry, the city of Birmingham. Obviously, they represent their team really well, but like they're not going to, like, I don't know, they're not going to go for, especially like you get these games where it's a game and then another game. You're going to get people that, are you going to do football all day? Are you going to be at the game all day from 11 a.m. till like midnight?
Yeah, exactly. See, that was one of the things that kind of struck me as funny is like, I'm a diehard fan. I'm a nerd, I watch, like you said, FCS.
I'll watch it on my TV all day.
Absolutely. But I'm on my couch in my house where I'm comfortable. I'm not, sitting in the stands for literally 12 hours at some points. That's crazy. I mean, I think it's an awesome option that you can re-enter and stuff like that, but I don't think that they should rely on that per se.
No, and then I think that's another factor for week one. Like, you'll see in week two, the fact that they have a game on Friday, 2 games on Saturday, and a single game on Sunday. You might see, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw bigger crowds. Non-Stallions games, I wouldn't expect. Honestly, I'm going to peg it around like 5,000 maybe.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think that's like maybe Stallions though, like opening night, 17, I could see it maybe dropping to like 13, 12. I still think Stallions fans are going to go. Like, USFL is really trying to go hard for Birmingham, and I think the city's going to appreciate that. You saw it with the Iron. They got pretty good fans in the stands. Maybe we could see it as high as like 20,000. Who knows?
I could see that. It just all depends on the game and the team involved. A couple questions, a little off topic, I guess. What would you think about the crowd attendance had they put it in somewhere that's like more of a tourist destination, like Orlando, Florida, or Miami, or somewhere like that, where people actually want to travel to?
I think subsequent weeks you'd get higher turnout, but I don't think you would have gotten as much of a home crowd turnout. You kind of saw it in the AAF and you saw it in the XFL. Like, the worst crowds were like the Orlando Apollos, as good of a team they were, didn't have great crowds.
That's true.
The LA Wildcats, as good of a team they were, not the best crowds. Like, those it's tough. You're going to get more TV like eyes in those teams, but you have to balance with like, will people show up consistently? And I feel like Birmingham, at least the fans there, the issue is just the fact that it's a hub season. Like, if you didn't do hub seasons, maybe you put the Panthers in, like, you don't put them in Detroit. Maybe you put them, or you do put them in Detroit, you still get good viewership. Or you put them in, like, Ann Arbor or East Lansing and kind of make it like a springtime, like, interact with the college a little bit, do something like that. Houston, I think you would have gotten decent ratings there. New Jersey, who knows? Like, they probably should have played it like a soccer stadium. And then you never know. Like, if this wasn't a hub scenario, I feel like the crowds wouldn't be nearly as much of an issue. Like, people would be talking about, like, oh, that one crowd is smaller than the other, like they talked about in the XFL. But the main story would have been if every game this last week, in week one, were in, like, a different stadium. The main story people would have been talking about is, oh, did you guys see how big the crowd was in Birmingham? Not like, oh, look how small every other place was in comparison.
True. True, I could see that for sure.
Because you still would have gotten like at least some thousands of people for all the other games.
Absolutely. So one of my cohorts at XFL, CFL, USFL News Hub group, he suggested that the XFL had a slightly better attendance because they actually charged more for their tickets. What do you think about that? Kind of gives people more incentive not to miss it if they've already purchased tickets.
I would say possibly. I mean, it's an undeniable fact that at least the Battlehawks had a better turnout than the USFL. Like nobody can argue that. The Battlehawks were about to open the upper deck. They were selling like almost 30,000 tickets.
Absolutely. That was one of the big reasons that it shocked me that the XFL shut down. They had such promising attendance numbers in certain cities.
Once in a lifetime fucking pandemic ruined everything.
Yep.
When that call happened that the league got shut down, I threw a chair against a wall and almost got fired that day. I was very upset.
Wow, that's intense. I wasn't quite as invested as you are. So with that being said, how excited were you to hear that they were bought and coming back in 2023?
I was ecstatic. I lit off illegal fireworks. I smoked a cigar. It was a great day.
That's awesome.
Day. But yeah, well, like crowd size, I feel like obviously, I mean, this is week one. This is week one. But the XFL, there's so many different factors. XFL they were coming back to St. Louis for the first time. St. Louis was going to have football in however long. They didn't have a post-pandemic world to worry about. Like they didn't have to even worry about doing a hub city or worry about crowds or like weird mandates going on. They were just doing whatever. And you could compare it to like each place, each team, each venue was going to get like at least a couple thousand just because you're at minimum going to get like a 1,000 or so or like a couple thousand locals that'll go. You're just not going to, the city of Birmingham will burn out if they go to like every game.
True. Probably true. I mean, you figure that's 10-week season, 4 games a week. That's
could you go to 40 football games in like a 2.5-3 month stretch?
No, I don't think I could. And
you could imagine going to like 4 football games every weekend.
Yeah, no,
I love football.
That's nuts.
I will watch 40 football games throughout a season. Easy.
Yeah, easy.
But from the comfort of my home.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what the USFL has like been saying from the get-go. The crowd size is a bonus to them when it's Birmingham. They didn't expect it. They're all in on the TV numbers.
Oh, see, I had not actually heard that, and I was going to ask you.
I feel like they're all in on the TV numbers.
Yeah, see, I mean, that makes a lot of sense with Fox being involved. And I mean, I know we've heard that they say they have the funding for 3 seasons, but it kind of worries me when you see
the XFL said that too. The XFL was saying
exactly.
That. You never know. These leagues could dry up in a month. You saw it with the AF. It's insane.
Yeah,
it's expensive.
Absolutely.
But I think the fact that you're getting at least 2 games per weekend on Fox and NBC, that's a big boon for this league. True.
I mean, if you're going to start off a league, that's definitely what you want to do. Simulcast all your games on 2 big networks.
They're not even like I think week 1 was the only one that was simulcast. The rest of them, like, they're going to do one of the games is on Fox, another game is on NBC.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I had not actually looked that far into the future in the schedule so far about where to find them on TV. So
like next week, I only looked up next week. So the Friday games like on USA Network, which they've been kind of doing. The other 2 networks they're doing are like USA and FS1, which are still like any basic cable package is going to have both those. Good on them. The AAF had the worst of that, in my opinion, where they were on CBS Sports Network. And nobody watches that. But yeah, so they're doing a game on USA, a game on FS1, a game on Fox, and a game on NBC.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so it kind of makes sense. You're getting a little bit of every crowd on each station.
You just got to kind of hope for the right magic per week that your best game ends up on like a Fox or an NBC. Because the XFL had it where, in my opinion, the most electric game of the season, Houston versus Dallas, that was on FS1. And it like it was one of the highest grossing FS1 programs in months. But imagine if, say, middle of the season, the New Orleans Breakers and the Tampa Bay Bandits are undefeated. Or the Stallions. The Stallions are undefeated. And you get the Breakers versus the Stallions week 6 on Fox.
That's
It's
makes
a good.
sense.
The storylines are like setting themselves up.
That's true. And actually, speaking of storylines, there's quite a bit in week 2. So that'll be interesting to follow too. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia playing each other. Yeah,
I'm
that in
so
itself.
hyped for New Orleans, Tampa.
Yeah, oh man, how could I forget that? That's going to be such a good game. That's probably going to be the game of the weekend, honestly.
It's my number 1 and number 2 teams.
They were my 2 and 3. I had Philly number 1, but after
I'm saying after week 1.
yeah, after week 1, I could definitely see that. Yeah, Philly's going to fall to number 3 because of the loss. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
The number 5.
So we're on to number 5. Oh,
I can't put a team that lost above a team that won.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. That makes sense.
That's just a principle I have.
Makes sense. It makes sense, especially after week 1. They always have 9 weeks to redeem themselves.
Exactly.
So on another note, since we're on TV network talk and your XFL Jim, I want to get your opinion about this. So we see the NFL and the XFL kind of cozying up. We've seen them, create multiple partnerships. What would you think about the XFL broadcasting games on NFL Network?
Like some games,
Some games, yeah.
I have been of the opinion ever since this like NFL partnership sort of situation with the XFL. Like, I'm cool with it. I like it. I like buddying up with the NFL. I really don't want the XFL or the USFL or any of these leagues to turn into a farm league. That's a worry I have in the back of my head. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want the XFL to turn into football G League. I want the XFL to like. Obviously, these players are going to want to go to the NFL. That's a fact that I have to accept. That like playing in the XFL for now at the very beginning or playing in the USFL is not going to be enough for like the best players here. They're going to want to play in the NFL, and it just pays better too. Like obviously, take care of yourself. I want these leagues to kind of balance the fact that they're trying to get players to the NFL without specifically saying that is their goal. I don't want the league's goal to be getting players to the NFL. I want this league's goal to be being a good league, playing good football, having interesting rules, being your own product. I don't want just you to be like daddying up to Big Brother, Big Daddy NFL and just like being a farm system. I don't want that. I would be very upset if the XFL 3.0 turns into like a G League. If they're just like showing games on NFL Network, I think NFL should embrace these leagues regardless of whether or not they want to turn them into like a farm system. They're not these leagues, as long as they stay in the spring, they will never directly compete with the NFL.
True.
Nothing will compete with the NFL. So what harm does the NFL have in using the NFL Network to show real football in the spring instead of like another talk show?
That was my exact thought process. It would be beneficial to the NFL Network and the XFL. You get, spread out to the NFL crowd that's always already purchasing NFL Network. XFL is getting a little bit more exposure. And then on the same point, like you've mentioned, the NFL doesn't have to fill it with talk show hosts. They're not paying anybody. They're probably getting a free product to put on their television, for people who are paying for their channel anyway.
Exactly.
So definitely.
My only worry is like the more I see this partnership with the NFL, and I saw it with like some commentators, they talked about it a little bit in like United by Football, and then I saw people on Twitter. It's like, I just don't like it when people think of these leagues as only a stepping stone to the NFL.
I agree. And I think...
And I love the NFL.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, we're all football fans, so obviously the NFL's, that's where the best players go. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody in the USFL, CFL, anything like that. There are plenty of great players in those leagues, but players naturally chase the money. And there's astronomical money in the NFL. You can't argue.
If like the fact that a practice squad member in the NFL is going to get paid more than like a championship winner in the USFL or XFL, that's just it's just astronomically different, the amount of money that they have.
Absolutely. I mean, I would definitely agree. And I mean, until a league can compete with even that veteran minimum, like you just pointed out, or the rookie minimum, which I think is somewhere in the range of 400,000.
Like the XFL offered like 60, 70,000. The USFL is like around 40, 50,000.
Yep.
they don't have the funds yet, but maybe eventually they can. Like
Exactly.
like some CFL contracts are pretty massive.
That's true. That's true. I think Jeremiah Masoli is making over 400 grand, if I'm not mistaken, a year.
Exactly, and like at that point, would you rather be a star in the CFL or like a backup in the NFL if you're making the same amount?
Yeah, true.
That's an easy answer for me.
True. And you actually bring up a great point because I think the CFL, had they made some better choices along the way, they might actually be a more of a direct competitor for NFL level talent. But that's neither here nor there. We're getting way
That's a
off
whole
topic.
can of worms.
But anyway, so what did you think about the Stars and Breakers game? Probably the best game of the weekend, in my opinion.
In my opinion as well, this was the best game. I mean, the Stars looked good. Like they just couldn't finish drives a lot of the time. Like Brian Scott looked pretty good, shaking off that interception right away. Pick six and a safety in this game, by the way. Awesome. Love seeing that. Oh, excuse me. Love seeing that. And then the Breakers defensive line, like Dalvin Bellamy was just the fact that he was mic'd up too was just fantastic.
Yeah, they got lucky on some of those things, man. The helmet cam on two of the defensive players that got turnovers. Then, like you said, the mic'd up Davin Bellamy.
I just wonder if they have everybody mic'd up and everybody has a helmet cam. I wonder.
That's honestly not a bad question because that would open up the possibility to catch every good play.
Exactly. You just catch it all.
Yeah,
And then
so
just have like your editor kind of filter it out throughout the game. I thought the Breakers looked really, really good, especially on defense. And then once that second half came around and Kyle Slaughter kind of got in a rhythm and they were going kind of up tempo, their offense looked really good.
Absolutely. You're right. I mean, which I kind of expected. Like I said, I expect Kyle Slaughter to kind of tear up this league a little bit when everything's said and done. But I was a little surprised to see Brian Scott throw that interception early, and then it seemed like he settled down a little bit. But like you said, the Breakers defensive line pretty much took over that game. It was like one sack after another. They were in his face all game.
Done.
Exactly. On another note entirely, on that scoring drive when Brian Scott looked off the defense and scored, the catch right before that, I think it was Chris Rowland. Did you catch that catch that he had?
That was a great catch.
That was amazing. Like, I am so glad that was one of those plays they had to replay 3 or 4 times because I was like, there's no way that's a catch. There's no way that's a catch. And then they replayed it, and I'm like, holy, how? How is that possible? That was amazing.
It was beautiful. There was like 3 or 4 throughout the entire weekend that were just catches.
That's true. And see, that's the thing that I wanted to highlight, actually, is that the play in this league, I think, actually was a little bit better than I expected overall.
The play overall was about around where I expected. The parity, the fact that like every game was at least a 1 or 2 score game, you didn't see this with the AAF. You didn't see it in the XFL. You saw like week 1, you saw some domination going on in some of these games. I think the USFL, at the very least, the way they did the draft should be commended with how even across the board a lot of these teams are. Because even the losers, like people will clown on the Michigan Panthers, but they were still in a position to win that game.
True. So one of my fellow channel mates that I hop on with every Friday wanted to say what's up. He's also digging the new USFL so far. And then for some odd reason, somebody hates Deebo Samuel's brother. I don't know anything.
Bill Belichick for you.
I don't know anything about Deebo Samuel's brother, so screw that guy, I guess. Sorry.
I guess.
But anyway, I thought it was kind of surprising to see guys like you said, Davin Bellamy and Sharif Miller, and then Channer Stribling kind of took over the games at times. Stribling, I think, had a couple different deflected passes and an interception. Bellamy, I think, ended with like 2 or 3 sacks and a couple tackles for a loss.
He had like 5 or 6 tackles for a loss. The guy was out there.
Yeah, he definitely he was in the backfield more than he was on his side of the line of scrimmage, it seemed like, it was just amazing to see. It was one of those things that I think that's one of their selling points, or should be one of their selling points going forward, is that, hey, if you want a defensive football, this is the league for you.
I think so too.
But moving on to game 4, Tampa Bay versus Pittsburgh. You said earlier this was your least favorite game.
Oh,
Why is that?
it all comes down to two factors. Kirby Wilson's really terrible play calling and game planning, and the fact that like Tampa Bay just kind of let them hang around. So like Tampa Bay didn't get to show off anything. They didn't get to do any flashy fun stuff. They had that opening drive which was amazing, but then they kind of turtled up and just didn't do anything after that. And then Kirby Wilson just kept banging his head into a wall. Just trying to run, play action, run, punt. And then kicked a coward's field goal, too.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That was actually kind of one of the things that I was shocked to see. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. It was like there was no parity in the play calling. And I get that Kirby Wilson is a former running back coach and that he has been around forever.
Maybe let someone else call the plays.
Exactly. He's taken on way too much in year one. I mean, he's calling plays. He's a general manager. He's a head coach. And he's never even been an offensive coordinator before. That kind of blew my mind.
It's pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts. And then, like, yeah, neither quarterback, like Love or Lalletta, neither of them looked great, but they didn't really have any chance to do anything. So I still have no idea what to think of them.
Absolutely. So you actually prefaced my next question for you. Great. I had no idea who Josh Love was. When I just watched one of your videos that was from 5 days ago or 6 days ago, right before the season started. And you
San Jose State legend.
I was going to say, you actually said that you thought he was going to be the starter. Is that just because of a bias thing or like what made you think that?
Like you kind of look at this team and you notice that he was like on that. So San Jose State, for people who don't know, historically terrible college football team. Really, really bad. And then all of a sudden, like 6 years ago, something like that, they start coming up. They win a bowl game for the first time in however knows how long. Who's the quarterback? Love. And then you kind of look at this roster on the Pittsburgh Maulers. Receivers. There's like 2 receivers on there that also played at San Jose State with Love. He has that connection. I think one of the tight ends, San Jose State. Like he just has that connection with these skilled guys that I think gives him the edge.
Definitely makes sense. I was shocked to hear that actually. Like I said, I was watching your video and I was like, man, he called that he called that way ahead of the time.
I heard it from some people too because like for actual hard-hitting news, all we had to go off of was like a USFL quarterback hype video. So people were basing some stuff off of that, of like who was starting. Like Luis Perez wasn't in it, but I didn't buy too much into that because they might have filmed that weeks ago and he wasn't in the league yet. So who knows what happened there. Like Paxton Lynch was in it, so a lot of people were thinking Shea Patterson wasn't going to start. I never thought that because like whatever. And then Kyle Love was there. He was the one that was like shown, and no Kyle Lalletta.
Gotcha.
So like potential, who knows? I think Love's maybe the better quarterback, and I think his connection, like I'd go with Love.
Yeah, I mean, if he's got that connection with the receivers ahead of time, it makes perfect sense. That was one of the big reasons I thought that Philadelphia was going to be so successful. I mean, we saw a couple of, I guess it's a total of like 16 or 17 players that Andrews had experience with, and Scott had experience with a good handful of those as well. So it was kind of interesting to see that they didn't really gel that well right away. In fact, seeing him stare down that receiver and throw an interception in the first quarter was a little embarrassing.
It was weird. That was a weird thing for Brian Scott. Maybe he needs to get the jitters off. He's too used to the spring league. He needs to shake off the USFL dust.
Yeah, I thought he recovered well. Now we're getting off subject a little bit, but I thought he recovered well when he was with on that scoring drive. When he looked off the defense, with perfection and then hit Bug Howard for a touchdown. So it was like, okay, there's the Brian Scott I was expecting to see. So that was kind of cool to see him recover. But ultimately we lost the game. But yeah, it's just one of those situations where expectations are always on one end, and then you see the ultimate reality of the situation when games are played.
And then with like how the Maulers Bandits game turned out, you don't even get to see, like I still don't know almost anything about the Bandits other than I think they're good. I think Jordan Ta'amu is probably the most well adjusted. Like he's over, like as of now, he's the best quarterback. in the league.
Agreed. I would say him and Luis Perez made a really strong push for it after the
Both
game he
XFL
played.
guys.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's Tamu. I think Slaughter's up there. I still think Brian Scott's up there. I think Perez is up there. I want to see more out of DeAndre's passing game. And then after that, it's kind of a steep drop off.
Agreed.
For now, I still think Shea Patterson has really good potential. I will die on that hill.
That's okay. That's a hill I'll let you die on. That's your hill to die on, buddy. But do you think that TV contract with Fox and Fox backing the league is enough for them to live through a bunch more games like this, attendance wise?
I think so. I mean, people will talk about it, and like maybe Mike Florio, known hater of spring football, but maybe that was just because it wasn't partnered with NBC. He might mention it, or people might mention like the crowds look really bad. As long as the TV viewership is getting numbers, I think they're fine.
I agree. And I hope that Fox sticks up to what they said when they said that they funded the league for 3 seasons. I think if you give this league 3 seasons and by season 3 you start trying to move teams to their markets, there's a real chance for success.
I would really hope that they try and move teams next year.
Really?
I thought that was kind of
really okay. Well, it would be nice to see for sure.
Because like 1 year, like year one is fine. Year 2, if you stay with the hub model, then that's all anyone's going to talk about. Especially if the XFL comes in and they don't do a hub model, that's all anybody's going to talk about is like, well, the XFL did it, so.
True. So Philly Insider Podcast wanted to hop on and say what's up. He asked if we already talked to Stars. Yes, Hunter, we did talk to Stars.
Best game of the weekend, though. Best game of the weekend.
Agreed. So we both agree that is the best game of the weekend, probably because New Orleans is one of the better teams in the league. I
still like Philly. Like they only lost by 4. They were still in it to win. Like
True.
You can't take anything away from them.
True. It was, and as Hunter said, it was a super fun game to watch.
Awesome.
It was definitely a super fun game to watch. Speaking of which, we talked about it earlier just briefly. What do you make about the kicking game being so bad?
So there was people on Twitter and apparently some like reporters and whatnot that were on location in Birmingham. We're talking with some players anonymously. These chips they have to measure the first down situation. I hear tell that they're like the size of a golf ball in that thing, which is throwing off the kickers, and I would also assume the quarterbacks a little bit, so maybe that's why some of the pure passing quarterbacks don't look as good, and maybe that's why some of the passes were off. Maybe. But I feel like kicking that affects way more if the ball's not kind of what they're used to. You saw it a little bit with the XFL because the balls were different than the NFL. Like, they had to find the sweet spot. So either A, if I'm the USFL, why do you not just have like kicking balls, like specific balls for the kickers that don't have chips in them? Or B, the kickers will just eventually get used to it and slowly but surely the kicking will get better. If I'm the USFL, I'm just having non-microchip balls for the kickers.
That's a simple solution they hadn't even
very simple. That's a very simple solution that I can't believe they wouldn't do.
Yeah.
And if they already have done it, then these kickers are just really bad. And I don't want to
Absolutely.
believe that because I like a lot of these kickers.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of these kickers are really good quality guys, and some of them should even be in the NFL, quite honestly. So Hunter, he said it's ironic how Philadelphia had a costly offsides call from a player named Bent Barnett.
Yeah, that was the game. That was the game right there.
And the kicking was very hard to watch. But without naming names, I have talked to a couple players. I have gotten some confirmation and some people denying that was a factor. So I don't know what to think there. Some guys are saying, you know what, it is a factor. It did affect me personally. Other guys are saying that it's not a factor. So I don't really know what to believe there.
I gotta think it would. Every time I've talked with a kicker or like heard kickers talk on podcasts or shows or interviews, like, they have a very specific routine they do each and every time. And you got to be thinking, if the ball's completely, like, if something's off with the ball, that's going to change how the kick comes off.
True, 100%. Maybe maybe it was due to one of them being primarily a punter. And I don't know. I really don't know,
Yeah.
honestly. I just don't know enough about the profession myself to speculate. I would wonder, honestly, the one thing that kind of strikes me as something that I want to hear an answer to is that microchip loose in the ball? Or is it solid in the ball, mounted somewhere?
It's got to be
Where
solid.
I hope so, because if it is and they're complaining, then yeah, you're right. They're going to adapt to it quick. But if it's something where it's moving around in
It
there and you
can't be.
hit the
It can't
ball,
be moving around.
God, I
It
hope
cannot
not.
be moving around.
God, I hope not. I really hope not. That would be some bush league stuff, for lack of a better term.
That's a good point too that Philly Insider has here. There has to be special teams issues with such little preparation. Because if you're going to sacrifice one unit to not practice as much, it's going to be special teams.
Absolutely, absolutely. So once again, Hunter, thanks for joining us. I did not expect you to hop on, man. Have a good stream yourself. But I got a couple more questions, and I'll let you get out of here. Do you think the long-term success of the league is determined by franchise owners buying in?
I That is something I'm uncertain. I think long term probably, because that's really the only way you're going to kind of get these. Like if the league is completely owned by just Fox or the USFL, you're never going to get these massive contracts that players will seek after. I don't think it's necessarily like it's not the only factor, but I think it's a decent factor that you would want franchises because if the USFL owns it, yeah, like it's the Michigan Panthers, but like they're owned by this company in Los Angeles.
True.
You'd want like a franchise like this is owned by someone here that is like a part of the community.
100%. 100%. And actually, I've heard some speculation. I can't remember exactly who it was. So if it was you, please make sure you let me know so I can shout you out in the video afterward. But somebody speculated, and maybe they have some insider information, that these cities that they chose were actually chosen because of potential ownership groups already in place.
That was not me, but I feel like you have the USFL, so obviously you're going to go with the classic teams. Like the cities were basically already chosen from the 80s. So that kind of worked out, and then they're good cities for football. The only one that doesn't have a city is Michigan. They're just
That's
a
true.
state. They're just a
That's
state.
true.
I feel like, yeah, I would assume Fox would want to have franchise stuff and like have contract agreements with these like owners. And then that also, if you're doing franchises, that also opens the road to earlier expansion. If you have someone
100%.
else footing the bill for that team. I like it.
Samuel Hicks is asking if that information is current. It's current as far as I know, but once again, I can't remember who said it, so I can't tell you how reliable the source is. And I honestly don't believe that came from anybody from the News Hub crew, Samuel, if that's what you're asking. I can't remember exactly where I heard that. I apologize to whoever threw that out there because it's a good piece of information if it's true. Do you think Fox ultimately keeps their word and runs the league for 3 seasons, regardless of attendance?
Regardless of attendance this year, yes. I feel like if you start to see a similar issue in year 2, then maybe think about it and maybe do like a contract renegotiation. And then if it's the same issue in year 3 that just nobody's showing up and you're not doing a hub, then yeah, like that's a major issue because that would also probably show that I would assume if you're not doing a hub, attendance is real low. I would assume TV numbers probably aren't doing that great either.
I would
I feel
assume
I feel like if TV numbers stay really good, even with semi-low attendance, they'll be fine.
I agree wholeheartedly, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how the attendance goes. That's one of the big things I want to see this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I've kind of like chalked this year up to not having good attendance no matter what. So I'll be delightfully surprised if we get really good attendance for a non-Stallions game. I'm waiting to like if they don't do a hub next year, then I'm waiting to see how those look like.
Absolutely, it would be interesting to see. Do you think they give the league a little bit more time if they move to the non-hub format and they still see attendance issues in the individual cities?
I still think they go with the 3 years minimum at that point.
Yeah.
Then like that's still another. It's basically like doing a year 1.2 if when you go from hub to like the actual cities, because then you're also dealing with travel. These players are living in these communities now. They're part of these teams. It's like kind of a different thing altogether than doing a hub league.
True.
So I feel like they would still, at the very minimum, give them like 2 more seasons.
I would agree. I think I definitely think that one of the big issues that they're facing is they're not able to build that community feel that the NFL is. They have players out there helping the community.
They'll have
doing
it with
community
Birmingham.
service.
They'll have it there.
Exactly. So that actually might play out well for the league in general, because if you think about it, I don't want to speak ill of Birmingham, but a lot of those other markets are a lot larger than Birmingham. So if they move and they already have that established crowd in Birmingham, it might actually be beneficial for the other teams to survive a little bit longer.
Well, it's that, and on top of like the USFL, to me, and their, at least in their like forward-facing marketing and whatnot, they've really tried to push Birmingham as like the city for the USFL. Like I feel like they might put their hub office there.
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't surprise me, honestly. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that specifically going forward. And like you said, if they ultimately pursue going to their chosen markets quicker to try and expand, depending on how things go this season. I would like to see the Denver Gold come back specifically.
I'd love to see the Memphis Express, baby.
There you go. For some odd reason, we always seem to get left out of all these leagues for some odd reason, but I won't get into that subject today. Another day.
It is weird that like every alternative league kind of just skips over Colorado.
Yeah, ever since
I feel like
the
Denver
USFL.
would be a really good spot. I feel like Denver is kind of like a Midwest Seattle in regards. Like I feel like people would show up to like spring football games.
I think so. We had a very, very good AFL team. John Elway actually was part of the ownership group prior to joining the NFL as the vice president or whatever he is. And they had a pretty good following. I went and saw a couple games. It seemed like they were always sold out. They were a championship level team. And then when he got out of the group, they kind of folded up. And we haven't really had another team since. We got like the Denver Rush with the Mike Ditka League, but I haven't heard anything about him.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that one.
Yeah, I actually reached out to the league to try and get some comments on what's going on, and nothing. Crickets. So we'll see what happens.
Jeez.
But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you get out of here, man. Thanks for joining me. It was a lot of fun. Maybe we could talk about doing another episode in the future. I love watching your show. So definitely keep doing what you're doing. And I'll hopefully be watching you for years to come, man.
Heck yeah. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Have a good night. And once again, thanks for coming on.
You bet. Anytime, man. Peace out.
Absolutely. Later. So once again, that was XFL Jim. If you guys are not familiar with him, please go check out his channel. Like I just told him, I am not bullshitting. I'm a huge fan of him, his channel, the way he approaches sports. He brings a lot of humor to it while at the same time giving you good actual, substance to the videos. So definitely go check out his information and all the videos he does. He actually just did a couple different videos prior to this weekend and after the weekend recapping the games, both of which were very good and informative. So go check them out right away. I'm excited that I even got him on, to be honest. I was fangirling a little bit when he messaged me back on Facebook because I did not expect to get a message back, actually. To me, he's kind of like a minor celebrity on YouTube, so it was kind of really cool to have him on here. Like I said, I've been watching his show for years, literally since 2020 when the XFL came out. I'd been following him and the league, and he was one of the big ways that I got a lot of my information back then. So it was cool. It was really cool to have him on, and I hope to have him on more in the future. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully you check out his channel, and you can subscribe, click the bell on both of our channels, and get more great USFL content in the future. Obviously, he covers, like he said, the XFL, the X League. I do not cover the X League, so if you want updates on that, definitely check out his channel. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you, everybody who joined us tonight. Thanks, Samuel Hicks. Thank you, Hunter, Rocco, Bill Belichick. I'm not familiar with who you are, but thanks for hopping on. Snowman in the morning. And of course, once again, thanks again, XFL Jim, for hopping on, man. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to have another conversation with you in the future. If you haven't done so already, like and subscribe to both of our channels, and we'll keep bringing you more great content in the future.